Hallo en welkom by die tweede episode van Potgooi dag 1, waar ons Kaapstad gaan help om maniere te vind om water meer effektief te benut. Ek is Tamzin Williams en ek is jou gasheer.
I fundamentally believe that water is a human right and we all should have access to water. For over a year, we've been coming to collect water, and when we first started coming, the queues were fairly short, and then with day zero approaching, it became quite chaotic with very long queues. But since the postponement of day zero, the queues have been shorter again. So we hope that people are not reverting back to, old habits and using more water.
We came the night before the 50-litre restriction, and it was crazy. It went out the gates over here, so it is much nicer that the queues have dwindled a bit, but it's also nice to see that people are still collecting and not just depleting, our tap water. And I also like the taste of the spring water more than I do of the tap water. The tap water is a bit grainy and a bit weird, so I prefer the actual spring water. It's nicer, I think.
To me, it tastes like a still water that I buy from the shop, so it's not that much different from there, because Cape Town, as you know, has got a very nice water. But since I come from Eastern Cape in Grahamstown, our water it's nothing compared to the water of here. If you have the money to buy it, then you can buy it, and then if you don't, or you want to come and collect this water, it's up to you.
Since we having serious problem with the water, so my husband decided that we come here to get fresh, clean water to drink. 4 years back, they've been talking about the spring, but never thought of coming here, there was no need. Now there's a need.
Last week I was here with my 3 daughters. I think it's something that they'll remember for as long as they live. Apart from all the complaints or the negativity surrounding the situation, I think some good has also come out of it. We have realized what the value of water is, and I think it has changed the way we work with water for a very long time to come.
Ons het nou net verneem dat die Nieuwelandse fontein 'n belangrike waterbron vir die stad Kaapstad is. 'n Fontein het sy oorsprong van water wat tussen rotsbedde versamel is en dan bo op die grond uitborrel. In 2011 het die Nieuwelandse brouery in samewerking met die stad toegang vir die publiek aan hierdie bron verleen. Dit is juis gedoen omdat hierdie bron sy oorsprong het op die grond wat aan die brouery behoort. Die vraag of dit as 'n daad van vrygewigheid, sosiale verantwoordelikheid of as 'n openbare plig beskou kan word. 'n Beperking is egter deur die brouery geplaas waar water vir die nie-besigheidsdoeleindes gebruik word, tensy anders moet toestemming van die Nasionale Departement van Water en Sanitasies verkry word. Die plaaslike kroë het positief op hierdie krisis reageer en het met slagspreuke soos spaar water, drink bier vorendag gekom. Hierdie was gedoen sonder om die 155 water wat nodig is om 1 liter bier te produseer te beklemtoon. Dag 0 is nou met 'n verdere jaar uitgestel. Meer inwoners van die stad tree nou toe tot die debat van die invloed van privatisering op hierdie krisis. Wie nou die regmatige eienaars van water is en in watter mate dit ons regte het om toegang tot water te verkry. Wat is privatisering in elk geval? Dit verwys na die oordrag van die bestuur en eienaarskap van die bepaalde diens aan die publiek deur die privaat sektor. In hierdie episode, ons gas Tabulu City van die omgewingsmoniteringsgroep van die Wes-Kaapse Waterkoukus, 'n kenner wie ons 'n goeie beeld sal gee oor die effek van 'n goeie waterbestuur toestel op die geleefde ervaring van die gemeenskappe. In hierdie episode sal ons leer hoe Imran Samuel sanitasiedienste desentraliseer deur 'n selfoplosbare toilette te vervaardig. 'n illustrasie vir 'n muurskildery wat in Soutrivier geskilder is as deel van die internasionale openbare kunstefees, geskilder deur die kunstenaar DayOne.
Don't worry about wasting water here.
So wie besit die water? Die Suid-Afrikaanse Waterwet van 1998 erken water as 'n skaars hulpbron wat versigtig bestuur moet word en haal aan. Water behoort tot die hele nasie en is tot voordeel van alle mense. Die kombinasie van die historiese ontginning van grond- en waterhulpbronne, die apartheid neoliberale beleid en die privatisering van hierdie skaarsbron het toegang tot water in 'n geldmaakskema verander. Een voorbeeld van privatisering is die verkoop van gebottelde water. In die afgelope maande het baie Kaapenaars in lang toue by winkels gestaan om hulle noodreserwes aan te vul om gebottelde water te kry. Mpumi verduidelik dat hierdie day zero paniek drankmaatskappye bevoordeel het.
The companies that are putting together bottled water, I think they are happy on their side because this thing is playing in their hands and they will score big monies for these tactics of saying this day zero will be on such and such a date. And those who can afford are buying more water.
Water op die rakke van die winkels beteken dat daar water vir die stad is. Die vraag is daar genoeg water vir almal in die stad? Vrygewige skenkings van die gratis gebottelde water het van so ver as Johannesburg gekom in reaksie op die bedreiging van dag zero. Die verligting was tydelik vir die dorre monde. Ons moet egter dink aan die grootte faktore wat oorweeg moet word en die gebruik van gebottelde water op die lang termyn. Eerstens, 'n liter gebottelwater kos tot soveel as R2.38 om te vervaardig, in vergelyking met die 16 sent gefiltreerde kraanwater per liter. Tweedens, moet ons in ag geneem word dat 3 keer meer water gebruik word om plastiekbottels te vervaardig as wat dit water kan hou. Nog 'n voorbeeld van waterprivatisering is die stad se uitkontraktering van plaaslike watervoorsiening aan privaat maatskappye deur vooraf betaalde watermeters en waterbestuurstoestelle. Toetsprojekte vir vooraf betaalde watermeters het in 2001 in Johannesburg begin. Sedertdien het gemeenskappe en sosiale bewegings reg oor Suid-Afrika hulle misnoë uitgespreek oor die toestelle en die inbraak wat dit maak tot hulle toegang tot water. Alhoewel vooraf betaalde watermeters in lae-inkomste gemeenskappe in Suid-Afrika geïnstalleer is met die doel om arm huishoudings te help om water te bespaar, het huishoudings meestal 'n onvoldoende hoeveelheid water verkry om in hul basiese behoeftes te voorsien. Hierdie toestelle is nie in die middelklas huishoudings geïnstalleer nie, wat die boodskap stuur dat as jy vir water kan betaal, kan jy soveel water gebruik soos jy wil. In 2007 het die stad Kaapstad waterbestuurtoestelle in lae-inkomste gemeenskappe geloods. Volgende hoor ons van Tabolo City, 'n personeellid van die omgewingsmoniteringgroep. Hy sal ons vertel van die werk van Suid-Afrikaanse Watercaucus en wat hulle geleer het met gemeenskappe wat waterbestuurtoestelle in hul huishoudings geïnstalleer het.
The South African Water Caucus is a network of NGOs, community-based organizations, and interested individuals in terms of wanting to bring justice, in the water sector. They come together to share ideas, share solutions, looking at what policy is saying and what's happening on the ground and what are the lived experiences, and then use that to kind of engage with government. We have 7 caucuses and they are all having different strengths. Some are meeting regularly because there's an NGO that is based in that province which is putting resources for those caucuses to meet. Like, for example, the Western Cape Water Caucus meets regularly because our activities are also embedded at EMG.
Can you tell us a little bit about how the Western Cape Water Caucus is engaging with the current water challenge we face?
Okay. Firstly, the South African Water Caucus has been dealing with different crises. There's a crisis around governance around South Africa, around Department of Water and Sanitation. So we've written a report highlighting the policy challenges that are there. There's policies that are left hanging. So the caucus at national level, we are dealing with those. Some people want us to act urgently and quickly, but for us, we like this process kind of approach.
Waterbestuurtoestelle is vir die eerste keer in 2007 bekend gestel. Teen die middel van 2015 is ongeveer 140,000 sulke toestelle in die stad Kaapstad geïnstalleer. In 2009 het EMG en die Wes-Kaapse Watercaucus 'n aksiegebaseerde navorsingsprojek gelei wat die ondergrondse ervarings van waterbestuurtoestelle in verskeie gemeenskappe ondersoek. Tabo som die resultate van hierdie navorsing op.
The water management device is just, I don't like to use this, a smart meter. It's set to give you a set allocation, of 350 liters per day in a household of 4. It's also above the allocation of national government of 6,000 liters of water per month. So it gives you that, and then if it's all used up, the meter cuts off and then you'll get your allocation the next day. On paper, that's how it worked, But what we found is that there was no public participation in these communities. No one came to present these devices. People did not get the proper education that was needed. Most people that we spoke to, they said the people just only talked about the device and how it will make your life easier in terms of the debt. And the response time when the device is not working, it was not great at all. In some cases, it cut off and the water doesn't come for days. In Atlantis, there were households that didn't have water for 3 to 2 months, same as in Danone. In some areas, the leaks, they were visible. Some of the leaks were even from the meter itself. And then also this property owner not being around, and then the kid just signs, and then when you come back home, there's a device. There was those kind of issues. It's unfair for the device to be targeted to only poor working class communities. In fact, that if I afford, I can use as much as I can, but if I can't afford, I need to be restricted. It's not sending a good message. When you speak to people, they were saying we've been saving water for years. They even gave us water management devices. How much more we can save? They must go to those who have swimming pools to tell them that they must save water. So that's what the message the city has been saying for a long time. If you're poor, restrictions. If you are rich, use as much as you want. People are feeling that they have been treated unfairly. As we know, the cutoff and the day zero, people have been queuing for water for a long time. So this is not new for them. So we need to also find ways of how we work with government that are not only bringing tensions between them and civil society, but finding a way that we can work with them, in terms of coming up with solutions. We are also understanding that they are also in a panic mode, some of them, because some of them, this is the first time dealing with this kind of a crisis. So I think for us, it's about building this relationship between government and communities. The time now for government to see us as consumers, it should be ending. It's time now they see partners.
That's how it's finished. It's finished.
Terwyl ons stad ontwikkel het om afhanklik te wees van hierdie sentrale waterverskaffingsstelsels, is daar ander mense wat aan alternatiewe dink. Volgende bespreek ons een wat verband hou met sanitasie. Wat is die plaaslike sanitasiesituasie? Van die 1.264.849 huishoudings in die stad Kaapstad het net meer as 1 miljoen huishoudings toegang tot spoeltoilette. Ongeveer 61.109 huishoudings moet nog van ander sanitasiedienste gebruik maak, soos puttoilette en emmerstelsels, terwyl 10.629 huishoudings nie eens toegang tot sanitasiedienste het nie. Vir diegene met spoelgeriewe kan toilette tussen 13 en 6 liter water per spoel gebruik. Is daar 'n manier waarop ons sanitasie meer gelyk en minder waterintensief kan maak? 'n Plaaslike permakulturalist, Imran Samuels, wat buite ligleer werkswinkels uit sy eie agterplaas, beter bekend as Gorilla House, het met een idee vorendag gekom.
We are wasting a lot of water with our sewage system. In the human manure handbook, which is the Bible of human manure, they say that for every kilogram of feces that you flush down the toilet, it takes about 1,000 litres just to process it, to get it to the treatment system and then from there to wherever it needs to go, which is usually the ocean or other water bodies.
Can you tell us a little bit about just the basics of how a composting toilet works?
With composting toilets, there's two parts to the system. There's your collection system and then there's your processing system. So your collection system is just any kind of receptacle that you can collect your deposits in. There's quite a few different types of it. And for true sustainability, it always has to be context specific. So there's no like one size fits all or silver bullet when it comes to any of this stuff. But yeah, so you've got your collection system and then you've got your processing systems. Someone needs to make sure that everyone's buckets have been emptied properly onto this compost heap and that, the correct cover material's been used and the balance of carbon and nitrogen is being maintained. So the nitrogen comes from your urine and your feces and then any other organic matter which you may add to the system. Kitchen waste, food scraps, stuff like that. Yeah. So the carbon is sourced in the form of either sawdust or straw or even compost material or mulch, which is just, organic matter, newspapers, cardboard, shredded up, any of those things. And the types of processing systems you get are compost heaps, something called thermophilic composting. So when you make a proper compost heap with the correct carbon and nitrogen balance, the microorganisms do their magic and the pile can reach up to about 70 degrees, sometimes even higher. In a backyard setup, you'll on average get about 30, 40, 50 degrees. But at 50 degrees, maintained for about 24 hours, you eliminate all pathogens. That's your worms, that's your viruses, that's your bacteria, all your harmful guys in those categories. We don't necessarily have to spend anything. You could source second-hand buckets, you could repurpose old bottles, old containers, even just using plastic bags, dust bags, as your collection system. In terms of the processing system, organic matter is quite abundant everywhere, but I do know in the more impoverished spaces it is less common. If you've got some space in your urban space, say it's an apartment complex, and where they usually store the wheelie bins, those same wheelie bins can be used as processing systems. So I think for about a cube, it takes one family of 6 people, can take a year longer to fill. So you need quite a little space to process quite a lot of material.
So on a very serious and potentially smelly note, if you miss some key steps in the process, there are significant health risks. For example, to prevent the spread of pathogens, make sure you add sawdust or any other type of dried carbon matter to your deposits, and don't forget to close the lid. On our website, you will find a PDF from Imran Samuels himself on the important things to think about, and we recommend that you take a workshop, see a composting loo in practice. Gorilla House is a place where you can do this.
Besides the fact of the amount of water that we're wasting, there's also the amount of nutrients that we're losing, in which we as humans produce every single day. Like I mentioned earlier, an average human produces about 450 kilograms of perfectly recoverable agri-nutrients every single year. We're losing our fertile land for growing food. We're not getting any more, and our population is increasing, while at the same time our topsoil is decreasing every single year. And this is one way that we can reclaim and rebuild our topsoil, but at the same time saving water. A win-win in that sense.
Dit is 'n goeie voorbeeld van hoe om water te bespaar potensieel kan lei tot oplossings in ander gebiede. Dit mag egter nie werk vir almal nie, aangesien jy genoeg spasie, tyd en die vermoë het om die instandhouding van komposteringsstowwe te bestuur. Een plek wat ruimte en tyd kan hê, is 'n skool. Stel jou voor dat komposloos toilette in die skoolkurrikulum ingebou is. Hoeveel kan kinders hieruit leer? Die kompos kan selfs vir groentetuine gebruik word. Dit het op die 13 Februarie gereën en dan weer op die 23ste. Kaapenaars het gepraat oor die emmers wat hulle op hulle erwe en balkonne geplaas het om hierdie geskenk te vang. Miskien het die donderstorm ons 'n boodskap gestuur. Wat was dit? 'n Teken van hoop? 'n Toets om te sien of ons bereid is om waterhulpbronne te gebruik wanneer dit beskikbaar is. Gebou op die onderwerp van privaat teenoor publiek. Ons gaan nou na 'n kunstenaar, Care One Love, wie besig is om 'n openbare ruimte te skilder met 'n boodskap oor wat om te doen as en wanneer dit uiteindelik reën.
I paint murals on walls, sometimes in public spaces, sometimes in private spaces, sometimes for schools, restaurants, businesses, and sometimes just for myself. I am this week painting as part of the International Public Art Festival, which is happening around Salt River. I have a wall here which is on a private residency in a little cul-de-sac next to a field. The central theme of this painting is a child. The child is quite a large scale. It's right the sort of height of the building. So it's like the idea of a giant child. Children are normally seen as not as important as citizens in terms of decision making and development. So this is seeing the child as very important in development, and that children have a lot to contribute, even in terms of science and thinking and creativity. So this is a painting of a child that's kind of playing with an umbrella and has turned the umbrella upside down. So instead of guarding from the rain, it's actually acting as a water catchment for the rain. And the umbrella is also like a cityscape. Along the edges of the umbrella we see buildings and Table Mountain and some houses and things. So it's like the city is the catchment. There's also references to other nature elements, a tortoise, a chameleon, a sugarbird, and some fynbos, other elements that are part of our city. When we see that there's fynbos, so we see an amazing bird, we see a chameleon, then we know that the ecosystem is healthy. So my hope is that if we keep painting these elements into our city space, then our cities will become more interconnected, integrated with nature, and more healthy ecosystems. And then the other aspect is remembering the ancient connection that we have with the Khoisan people of this land. So the Khoisan people originally were guardians of the waterways, the sacred waters that came from the mountain. So it's just remembering that there are these springs that our development is covered over, and maybe as we develop and change our water systems, we need to take into account those ancient waterways and bring them back up. I enjoy giving a voice to conversations or research that might just be filed away or online or in a journal, but not really accessible to people. So the art is like a bridge between information and people, and then on that bridge, hopefully lots of people have conversations and it sparks other ideas or projects or connections. We've used an eco-friendly wall paint, and we're trying to use less spray cans to achieve the same effects. You can find my mural alongside another very beautiful nature mural of a huge leopard and a waterfall and exciting things by a lovely Finnish artist called Sala. We've been working together in this cul-de-sac in Salt River, so the cul-de-sac's name is Robin's Road. A cool thing earlier, there was a granny walking with her little baby. He was probably under a year, and she spent about an hour in this cul-de-sac just taking him around, pointing out all the animals and the plants and the shapes, and she was teaching him words and he was looking at the paintings. I haven't really thought about art in a public space is also a way for babies to learn about the animals or plants, learn words. It's quite cool.
Met die muurskilderkuns het ons een jong kunstenaar in lyn gevind om water by die Nuwe Landse fontein in te samel.
I just helped to paint the tuck shop. This artist came and he drew some shapes with black paint, and then we just had to color it inside.
Was there a message?
Not with that one, but at the back of the school there's one.
And what was that message?
Water is more precious than gold.
What do you think about that statement?
I think it's definitely true. I think Nico has something to say. Yeah, I was also painting the tuck shop.
What about that statement that your sister, is it?
Chloe.
Yeah, about water being more precious than gold. What do you think about that?
I think that's amazing, very cool. Water is more precious than gold.
Stel jou voor, water het die nuwe goud geword. Sal ons dit laat wegvloei in die oseaan soos ons dit nou doen? Sal ons soveel kan betaal as wat ons wou hê? Met wat sal ons daarvoor betaal as dit die kosbaarste ding is? Sal ons dit gouer oorweeg om 'n kompostoilet aan te neem? Wat belangrik is, sal ons dit waardeer en behandel asof dit goud is? Sal ons dit beskerm en gebruik tot voordeel van almal? Hoe kan ons verhandel op grond van 'n waterekonomie? Om ons te help om privatisering beter te verstaan, vra ons jou, kan daar enige vorm van privatisering wees wat die publiek bevoordeel? Suid-Afrikaanse brouerye het belangstelling in gebottelde en verspreiding van water uit die Nieuwelandse fontein uitgespreek. Is dit moontlik om die fontein meer toeganklik te maak vir mense wat nie daarheen kan reis om salfwater te gaan haal nie? En watter impak sal waterverwante besluite op die brouery se vennote maak wat gaarsboere is? Laat ons weet wat jy dink. Vir meer inligting, stuur antwoorde, voorstelle of vrae na www.dayonewater.wordpress.com.